Right, there we go. Yeah, sweet. Okay, so next up on our speakers today, I've got my notebook around here somewhere. What did I do with it? I put it down on there it is, on the floor. Because I wanted to tell you something slightly different about some of our speakers today, because you can read up there that, you know, some of the awesome things that Ivan's done over the years. But one of the things that we actually really wanted to tell you today about Ivan, it was only announced yesterday, of course, that he has been announced as a finalist for the Ex-Military Business Network of the year. So well done for that, Ivan. Really, really good news. But what I want you to think about now as we move into the delivery side, which is thought about how we can finance things, but how do we take that valuable information all the way through from perception all the way through to delivering that to our last speaker. So I'm going to hand you over to Ivan, who's going to tell you a little bit about that in East West Rail.
So yeah, welcome to my hometown. Like I say, I don't live here anymore. I didn't live in that bit. I lived over Hove, actually, the posh bit, as we say around here. Let's move on. Yeah, that's fine.
Fine.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to talk about perspective on harmonizing data. Before I do get into that, talk a bit about the context of the project I'm working on now and why it's relevant to information. So East West Rail project, and I don't know where the laser button is, so you're going to have to forgive me putting some fingers up towards there, is a project that is looking to connect Oxford with Cambridge via Bletchley and Milton Keynes. The reason we're looking at building that railway is estimates, and you confirm this on our website, suggest that we can release up to £90 billion into UK economy for doing so, because you've got two of the most influential tech centres in the world right at either end of that railway. What does the complexity of that mean for information? Well, we've got a bit of railway that's already operating between Oxford and Bicester Village. So trains running there already. We're currently looking to go entry into service over the next year or so from Bicester Village up to Bletchley. And that's been mainly realised by reinstating old earthworks from the old Varsity line that was closed down in the 1960s. From Bletchley up through to Bedford, the Marston Vale line as it is now, it's a commuter rail, it's a two-car rail, single track, very suboptimal, and there's a lot of level crossings on there, which are not really good when you want to run trains at 100 miles an hour or 4 trains per hour. You'd be, at the moment, I think on one of the crossings at Bow Brickhill, you could be waiting there for 27 minutes any time in the hour. And you imagine when we put twice as many or 3 times as many trains through there, not optimal. When we get up and we start moving into Bedford, we'll be running past an A&E hospital. Things we're going to want to worry about when we get up through there. And then last but not least, coming out of Bedford and going into Cambridge, there is absolutely nothing. Well, there is. There's a floodplain. There's a bit of tunnelling to do. And then there's an entry through a very busy part of Cambridge to do. Oh, yeah, and that's not all. M40, A5, M1, A1, and the M11. Oh, and a little bit of high-speed rail that's coming in somewhere around here. So we've got some major interface points. And what's my point about that is it's going to generate a ton of information that we've got to handle, we've got to manage, that people are interested in. You've seen now, it's really only relevant in that if you picked out some of the things, the places I've worked for, you'll really see that a lot of those places are all about information. You know, Atomic Weapons Establishment, what's that about? It's about data. Right? You don't conduct underground testing anymore. We do it through experimentation, high performance computing. It's all about the information we generate. MBDA Missile Systems, why do we worry about information there? Because it's a £4 billion a year, €4 billion a year business, 17 billion back order book. We worry about our information because we worry about being late. So I'll move on from that really. But there's a problem. There's a problem around about information. It's a problem about data, okay? And it might not be the problem you think. we've got too much of it sometimes. What do we do with it? What do we need the data for? When do we know we've used it? It was a thing on the panelists at the AA panel just before lunch that said, when do you start to dispose of the things that you're creating? Yeah, because let me share this with you. MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology in the States, recently did a study about the impact of creating these big data lakes and large impact of data. They're going to ruin our carbon footprint if we don't manage them. So all that net zero activity we're trying to do, and we're trying to use digital methods to get there, if we're not careful, we can wreck it. If we don't know how to deal with our data and when we need to dispose of it. Because how do you keep your data? We keep it on big servers somewhere. You know, that cloud's a big server somewhere, isn't it? It's a server room somewhere. You know, so I think we've really got a multidisciplinary information problem, is the way I look at this. Domain specialization. It separates the expertise. We still think in discipline-specific methods and the data and technologies. That, for example, my background is systems engineering. Systems engineering interface to software engineering interface. Only in recent times are we starting to use common languages between us. Then the handoff between where we are in the systems world and in the mechanical world, well, we're not even talking the same language. You know, CAD, end-to-end computer-aided engineering, computer-aided manufacturing, that bit's largely good. Yeah, that bit is good. PLM systems, product line engineering is addressing a lot of that. But the interface between the conceptual systems world and those models we're building there and interfacing with the mechanical world, largely problematic. We do have best-in-class tools. I'm not going to come here and duff up the vendors. Far from it. I think there are some best-in-class tools out there. But they don't connect always. I've just given you one where they don't. Conceptual world, mechanical world, no interface. There are vendors that argue they're getting there, but it isn't there yet. And largely, where it doesn't get there, it can be down to your own infrastructure. You know, your IT infrastructure plays a part in this. So technology tends to focus on applications for each discipline rather than actually looking at a collective whole. Products and lifecycle goals. This is a bit of a bugbear of mine. Program integration. This is what this is about. You can have multiple programs doing different things, yet they are sharing the same data. You can have projects in the same program. They're working fundamentally on the same thing. So say missile, for example, capability uplift program versus a capability sustainment program. Same platform, same missile, but they're doing different things. They're not integrated, they're on different life cycles. Separate flows and the processes and targets in each discipline don't add up. So the transversal bit is missing. What does that mean? Creating more information than we actually need. And at the end of it, you know, you get delivery and manufacturing pressures. So, you know, in a construction world, it's all about delivery, time, cost, get it done, get it built, get it into service. And in the manufacturing world, it's, get it out in the hands of the user. So my background in military platforms, for argument's sake, it's certainly during, wars in Afghanistan and in Iraq, get it out into the hands of the user. And that's exactly what we want to do. We want to get it in the hands of the user because it's no good on the shelf. But it does lead to shortcuts. It does lead to pressure, downward pressure to get it out the door. And that means that you don't really get complete systems needs taken into account. The other thing I haven't put up on there, and I think is sort of leads on from where Peter was earlier, there is a constant downward pressure to become more affordable. All right, more affordable. I put caveats around that because what does it really mean? Get your costs lower. Yeah, doesn't go away. Get your costs lower. Now, why is that relevant to the challenge I'm in now? Well, we've got three major outcomes that are significant to me in my role as head of systems and digital engineering. And that is, we want to build a railway quicker than is the normal for railway in the UK. We want to deliver it cheaper than is normal for railway in the UK. Now, they're good bedfellows, aren't they? Quick and cheap. They're really good bedfellows. Nice challenge. And then I'll throw another one in. We want it greener. Yeah, so we're going to have some net biodiversity challenges in there. Okay, I fundamentally believe we don't do that unless we understand how we leverage digital methods. Not going to do it by what we've always done before. But it's not solely a data problem. Pete's told you it's a money problem too, and understanding where the money comes from and how to generate the money. But it also affects systems, it affects the products. We've talked about the processes, as well as the project, and then more importantly, the people. Okay, people. another one just to set the scene here and my perspectives on data and our challenges. Now these numbers here come from a study in 2017, and I did feel about updating it. And then I read a McKinsey report from last year that broadly doesn't quite use the same numbers, but it's broadly saying the same thing still. And it really doesn't matter what the number is there. The bigger it is, the more it costs. That's what it means. Engineers spend 15 to 35% of the time searching for information. Now, I'm in a cyclical business on the rail for the first time ever. It's my first foray into infrastructure from defence. What it means, my team construct changes over time. Back in the summer of last year, I had 35 people in my team. I'm now down to 12, and I'll be probably a little bit thinner than that at some point. That's because of the cyclical nature of the demand for the information I need to generate and when it's needed, and those inflection points on life cycles. What that means is, for some of those engineers that were working for me back summer, were on contracts. They're on contracts, and their day rates were somewhere between £400 and £1,200 a day, depending on specialism. Now start thinking about some of these numbers down there in terms of those. Yeah, I tell you, it hurts. 40% of corporate users report they can't find the information they need to do their jobs. Who in here has had those frustrating moments? You know it's there somewhere, you can't find it, but somebody's told you it's in your information management system, it's in your business management system. Yeah, that was me earlier this week. Yeah, trying to find something. Up to 50% of intranet searches are abandoned. Yeah, we've all gone to look something, find it, can't find it, and we ditch it, and we go and grab an old version that we downloaded before, it's been sitting on the desktop, and go, that'll do. And we send that off to a supplier. And now we've got a configuration management problem. We've got a version control problem. We've got a cost problem. And we've got an information integrity problem. 90% of the time, knowledge workers, and we're all knowledge workers in here. If you're working in construction, you're working in infrastructure, you're working in defense, if you're working in engineering, anything that involves tech, you're an information worker, knowledge worker. Create 90% of the time. No, that's wicked. That's telling me that most of the time I spend during the week, I'm creating new stuff when I've already got it. I've already got it. Now that, I mean, even if that's not 90%, even if it's 20%, that's still a day a week. You know, you start putting it in those kind of, so these are, we spend time not finding information. That's just wrong. I want something like this, where it's a busy picture. What is it really telling me? I want a digital exchange backbone, and I want to find stuff. And ultimately, at the end of it, for my project, I want total integration between my customers, or my customers, my partners, my supply chain, us. I want everybody to be able to find the information they need. I want robust information at the fingertip when it's needed is what I'm really after. Now, we've got some of these bits. You know, I said we've got first-in-class tools. Most of the elements of that are here. You know, a digital exchange background, common data environment, you know, for money, perhaps. The standards, the guidelines, compliance views, that's in a business system somewhere, you're going to have it. You know, I want people to start to work together, technical authority teams, link to the teams. I want 3D model sharing, document sharing. You know, yeah, all this stuff is, you know, broadly available, but we still go back to those other numbers. This, in part, I think, is one of the reasons. We've still got document-centric approaches. They still dominate. How can we achieve digital? We're supposed to be digital workers here, aren't we? You know, we're all interested in digital. You're interested in digital twins. That's why you're here. Okay. How can we achieve digital if our information requirements are still kept in static spreadsheets? I'll give you an example. And Ian knows this because he was working on this in my project last year. The information requirements, and those comprise things like asset information, exchange information, how do we exchange information between each other, the operational information, what are the security information, all of the requirements for how we deal with that information have been captured in spreadsheets and published in Word documents. Now that, to me, in the digital world, is absolutely insane. And the thing that makes it even more insane for me as a systems engineer, because as you can see that, we have not accepted that in the physical systems or the product world for decades. For decades, we've captured them in master documents. We've captured in products called doors, like doors. So, stable, traceable requirements, the backbone of a reliable system, in my view. That's why we do it. That's why we don't capture them. We don't use documents for it. And information requirements are requirements. Well, that's a doors extract. Okay. Broadly look at it, looks and feels pretty much like a spreadsheet. It's a bit different though. And if you've used anything like ProjectWise or a PLM, PDM type system, you get the same kind of feel and functionality. There's folders, there's artifacts, and they're all linked to a requirement. The broad thing, but the thing that's really fascinating about this is though, I can give each one of you a link in the room if you're on my project and link you straight into that database. You can comment on it. You can't change anything, but you can comment directly on it. I can see it. I can sentence that requirement. I've got traceability between that requirement and any assumption that it relates to it. I get traceability between that and any risk that's associated with it, because I can do the risk between things like ARM. Okay, so I start to get robust requirements, the unambiguous statements a user need. They've got clear anatomic articulation around them and syntax, and they're traceable, and I can share them. So that just gives you, and that incidentally is an extract. You can't really see it, but that's from some of the security requirements we've been working on recently. Now, another very, very busy picture. What does this picture? Well, I can take that doors extract. I can take those doors models, those modules in doors. Oh, and incidentally, we're using doors. Look it up. It's an IBM system. It's probably the globally most successful requirements management system. Like all products, some people love it, some people hate it, but it is the market leader in its field. I can link it straight to my enterprise model. Okay, my enterprise model is built using a model-based systems engineering technique. There are plenty of enterprise architecture models out there, but I can directly link each requirement back to corporate vision. And then if I give an example that I've got up here, sorry for trying that, I don't have the laser to hand. But that we've given an example here is not actually an information requirement, it's a real requirement. So we've got a corporate vision, and part of that corporate vision, one of the features of that corporate vision is on-time trains. On-time trains. Those on-time trains relate to a number of outcomes. For example, the East-West Rail system shall achieve journey times significantly quicker than current service provisions. Okay. We can trace that down to the East-West Rail system shall deliver maximum point-to-point journey time between Oxford and Bedford. And we can then trace that directly to the capability that we need in order to achieve that requirement. Okay, what does this mean? Now, I can trace that back to any source. So documents don't go away in this world. They don't go away. It's just how they're generated. Okay, sometimes we need to give a document to someone. Sometimes digital signatures don't prevail everywhere at the moment. Certainly with some kind of regulators, they want a wet signature on something. So they don't really go away, but you generate them differently. You don't start typing in Word. All right, what you do is you use the application and the model to generate the word template. You create a word template and it generates it for you. So we can trace all these back to a source requirement that's come from our sponsor. Now think about that in terms of the information requirements. I can take a requirement from my sponsor and I can trace it right down to the information requirements I'm giving to my supplier and all the way back and show how I achieve information and data integrity to achieve what the sponsor is asking me to do. So that's the point really of that document, of that slide. We don't have to settle for Word-based documents or spreadsheets to handle information requirements, or we shouldn't. It doesn't come easy, by the way, and some of the, it seems to be the prevailing order that information managers don't really understand things like requirements, management systems and that, so they're going to need help. So I spoke about this earlier. The intent I have in my world is a simple one. The intent's absolutely clear. I want reliable information at the fingertip when it's needed. All right, that's easy to say. It's a very simple statement. It's clear, I think. It's absolutely clear, clarity of what I want. All my team know that. I know they know that. And I also know that, some of my supply chain know it. So our tool vendor, Bentley Systems are our tool vendor. CAD Venture, Paddy's over there, is our supporter in terms of delivering that. Why do I want it? Well, it enables me to make evidence-based decision-making. Evidence-based decision-making. You'd expect that somebody like me that works for the Defence Science and Technology Laboratory, which is kind of an MOD sort of assurance thing. I want to know where's the evidence trail? Hence, I like the traceability. Governance is also a requirement. You've got to think governance. Now, in order to get that, it's about data utilization. It is, why do I need the information? What do I want it for? What data is reusable? Yeah, what data is reusable? You need a feedback loop. You need a feedback loop. And delivering this requires clear digital transformation goals. I'm not going to go through you. I've got 5 very clear digital transformation goals. Each one of those has 3 focus areas, and they're all, the means to delivering all that is having good process integration, good tools, understand what you're going to use the tools for. Don't start blaming the vendor. You should have done the evidence-based decision making. You should have looked at your evaluation criteria, what you're going to use it for. Technology, yeah, technology, underpinning technology, the data and the people. People are really, really critical here. Really, really critical. It's too easy to fill a critical vacancy with a body because you're under pressure. These require clear foundations. And it's my last slide. And I just noticed the fine folk in the woodland casual suits over there. Ian's friends from the Royal Engineers, they'll know exactly where this has come from. So if you've ever been anywhere near the military, you'll understand the background to this, right? You need to know what is going on and how it affects you. What is going on? What is my team task? What I've been tasked to do and why am I doing it? Yeah, I'm doing it because I need clear, robust information, reliable, at the fingertip when it's needed. What outcomes do I need to achieve? What directions must I give to develop that transformation plan? How best can I accomplish each of those outcomes? My first outcome was to get data sovereignty. Yeah, our data was not in an environment I owned until this last weekend. So my first outcome, gain data sovereignty. You can read the rest, but finally, don't ever forget, you need to put some control measures in there. It's easy to get carried away when you get the tools. Yeah, there's always a tool jockey. They'll tell you that tools are great and they can do everything. So you need to have control measures. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ivan. Something that is always in my mind is that the information we measure, monitor, gather, store, model is expensive. Yeah, it costs money to do all those things, and it also costs carbon. So if we waste our time, effort, money, carbon collecting information that has no value, I'm afraid to say I'm looking at you, Kobe and IFC. There's a hell of a lot of stuff in there that, quite frankly, has got no value to anybody whatsoever, but we're slavishly following some lunatic's mantra. We don't get the value for money for the financial people. We waste the time, money, and effort of the delivery people, and we don't give Smurf and his operations and maintenance world what they actually require. And being able to track that requirement, that board member, that shareholder, that politician has stood up in front and said, I will get that train from the airport to the city centre in 30 minutes, and being able to track that all the way down to the specific pieces of information that will measure and monitor and prove that that's successful is massively valuable, because that politician can now stand up in front of the people who elected him and go, I've done it. See the information? It's there. You can re-elect me. How valuable is that piece of information? Because you've now proved that their statement is measurable and monitorable, and because you can track that all the way through from start to finish.